The Storm Warfare $50,000 event is happening now, but do you have a deck? Have you figured out a good deck? It's a brand new card game. There's only been a few playtests. You might not have anything yet, but I got you. Control United Kingdom. It's a UK deck that's a slow-paced control build, and it is slapping. I was originally trying to play an aggro deck in the UK class. I had Zoo Aggro here. It's kind of small. But the aggro version wasn't working that well, so I built this control version, and it's so much better. The deck list is in the description. You don't have to try to read it off the screen. It's tiny. But I'm going to go through some key cards. I'm not going to read through the whole list, but it's in the description. I also posted it in the official Storm Warfare Discord. If you're watching this relatively soon after I post it, you could probably just go there and scroll up. So let's take a look at some of the key cards that make this deck tick, that make this deck so good. Starting here, and by the way, I can't really dig too deep into all the lore, but there's some really cool World War II history stuff. Like, they actually quote the speech from Winston Churchill where he said, "We shall never surrender." It's actually very cool. But in terms of just gameplay, focusing on that right now, this is a key card. Well, first, let me briefly explain the strategy of the deck. Then I'll explain this card. So what the deck is trying to do, in the early game, we're just trying to stop the opponent from getting on the board. We're trying to shut down any early aggro. And specifically, we're going to try to play units that have a keyword called Intel. Intel is going to ramp the cost of our cards and make it lower. So we can take cards like this, which I'm about to show you, that costs 8 energy, and ramp it down to 7 energy, 6 energy. And we're running a handful of strong, high-cost cards, which we can then ramp down to lower energy costs to play that stuff faster, combining high-value cards with a faster tempo strategy, making this really more of a mid-range type of deck. But I'm just calling it control because it's more controlling in terms of the aggro control combo triangle. It's closer to control than aggro. You're going to be on the defense most of the time. But yeah, it's definitely that energy ramping mechanic. So with that said, this is one of our win condition cards. This is probably the main win condition. We can only run one of it in the deck because it's a legendary or an elite. It's one of those where you can only run one instead of two. And what it does is call in 2 1/1 units with Thunder. So Thunder means they can attack units right away, but they can't attack face until next turn. Call in 2 1/1 Thunder units, and then give +2/+2 to all friendly units. So what you need to try to do, the win condition here, you can win some other ways, but the big win condition for this deck is have a few units already on the board, and then play We Shall Never Surrender to buff those units, plus summon the extra units, the 1/1s that get buffed immediately to 3/3. So you have 2 3/3 Thunders to clear the board, and your other units can either go face right away, or they can also defend the board. This card lets you take over the board and build up a huge advantage that hopefully, after you play this card, you'll no longer be at risk of losing. Your opponent will no longer have a way to defend. So in the best case, this will just be the game-ending card. In worse scenarios, this card can help you come back if you're falling behind. Again, if you can just have some stuff on the board, that's really the key, because if you just get the 1/1s that get buffed, it's not quite enough. But if you have a few other units, this is very powerful. Let's look at some of the other key cards of this list. So another really important card, one of the cards that's got the most marketplace activity. Last I checked, it was going for a whopping $5 or $6. In fact, just for fun, I can't help myself. Let's look and see what it is going for today. Now it's going for $7.50, and the price just goes up from there. So yeah, this is becoming one of the most in-demand cards that I've seen, and it's selling pretty often. What this guy does, he's a hero. So again, really cool how they have all the World War II history added. We're not going to have time to go through all that. But the way this card works, he has 6 health, and then he uses your leftover energy. I realize I'm covering part of the card. Let me... Better late than never. So he costs 3 to play, and then at the end of each turn, if he's on the field, if you have 1 energy left, he spends that energy, and he does this. Deal 1 damage to a random enemy, trigger Intel. Intel meaning one of the cards in your hand has its cost go down by 1. So if you have 1 energy, it'll do that. And then if you have 2 energy left after that, it'll use 2 energy and it'll deal 2 damage to a random enemy. And then if you still have 3 more energy, so you'd need 6 energy left at the end of turn to get all 3. But if you do, it'll do the third effect for 3 energy, deal 3 damage to a random enemy unit, deal 3 damage to the enemy commander. So usually you're only going to get the first 1 or maybe the first 2 effects, but just this is the key, really. Deal 1 damage to a random enemy, trigger intel. That's huge. Anything that triggers intel is really important, and this guy is able to do it over and over again. And if he does stay on the board for a while, you can start to just pass with a lot of energy and use the double effect or even sometimes a triple effect. So as a hero, he demands removal. He gets a lot of value, and if you can put him behind some defenders, some fortress units who have to be attacked first, they won't even be able to attack Liam Andrews. He can get incredible value. So there's a reason I think this card is in such demand. And if you can afford it, it's only $7 right now, $8. I would highly encourage you to buy it and add it to your UK deck. It just seems really strong. What's up, Blue Core? Welcome to the stream, by the way. You were forced to watch Gods Unchained. Don't worry, I got you. I got you covered with some Storm Warfare content. All right, let's go through a few more cards. Those are the big ones. The rest of these are a little simpler. So 47th Signal Regiment, Intel. So whenever it attacks, it'll trigger Intel. And then at the end of your turn, gains +1 attack. So a 1/4 to start, but the turn you play it, it becomes a 2/4, and then the attack keeps ramping up. Plus, every time it attacks, it does the Intel thing. So the point of this is pretty simple. Trigger Intel as much as possible, plus the ramping attack is a nice bonus. Another one of our Intel trigger cards is AEC Armored Car, just a 3/4 for 3 with Intel. It's a good stat line, bro. I'm melting, so I'm trying to get my air conditioner. Turn back on. Why are you off? Okay, it's back on. 3/4 Intel for 3, good stat line at a good cost. And again, the more times we trigger Intel, generally, the more likely we are to win. So we're just trying to get Intel as much as we can. Now, a card that I find really interesting that works well in the defensive version of this deck, was the version we're using, is Decoy Operation. It's a spell, or an event as it's called. Call in 2/02 decoy tanks with Fortress. So they have to be attacked before they can attack your other units, frontline, and draw a card. So if you have some good units, especially if you have some Intel units or your hero, Liam Andrews, this will give you those front lines or fortress to defend that stuff so you can keep getting value from it. Once you're in a position where you have some Intel units and some fortresses defending them, and maybe a high-cost card in your hand that's getting ramped down, that's when you're starting to get closer to winning. So this is a nice way to establish your position once you're starting to get ahead. The card draw keeps your hand from emptying out. It's actually been a really nice card. And especially later in the game when you have plenty of energy to spare, it's just a great way to cycle. Now, Royal Norfolk Regiment. I have 1 copy of this in the deck. It's probably bad. I'm only running it to test it, and I drew it like once in 8 games. I just didn't draw it. I would probably take this out, but I haven't done it yet because I'm just not sure. It does trigger Intel immediately on deploy. It's a 1/1 for 3. Intel when it deploys, and then it deals 5 additional damage to units. So it'll do 6 damage when it attacks a unit. It's interesting to me. I'm still giving it a chance. Part of me thinks maybe it might be good, but most likely this will get taken out, and I would add in like 1 more of the higher cost cards, one of the bigger units to hopefully be an Intel target. Still, I'm probably going to keep playing around with that a little bit just in case. I think it does it if it gets attacked. Like, if a unit attacks this, it will deal 6 damage in retaliation. Because it doesn't say it deals additional damage when attacking. It says it deals additional damage to units. So I believe if it gets attacked, it'll retaliate with 6 damage. Which makes it interesting. It's interesting. I'm not sure. It might be good. I'm just mentioning it's like that's the most experimental card in the build so far. Now, this is one that I might run 2 of instead of running that card we just looked at. Right now, we're only running 1 of these. Cruiser Tank MK2. It's a 5/5 for 7, and when you play it, you can retreat an enemy unit, which means sending it back to their hand. This is a great card in a lot of ways. If they have a big card that is like a slow tempo card, you just send it back to their hand and it forces them to play it again. What's interesting is if you're close to lethal, you can get rid of their fortress and then your units just attack face. You can retreat their fortress so they think they're safe. You get rid of their defense and you kill them when they don't see it coming. In general, this card might not look like that much on the surface, but trust me, and thank you for the follow, Magi Lover, or however I pronounce your name, thank you. This might not look like much, but this card is incredibly strong, especially if you intel it down so it's only a 6 cost or a 5 cost. Like, this card wins games. It's just a really good package of value, especially with the potential for intel. And then one more to look at here, then we'll get into some featured matches of me playing the deck, getting some wins in real time. Leicestershire, I think, Leicestershire, something like that. I'm sorry for pronunciation. Leicestershire Regiment, a 9 cost, 5/8, artillery 3, which means at the end of each turn, it picks a random enemy target and does 3 damage to it, either a unit or the enemy's face. And also, when you deploy it, call in 2/02 decoy tanks with fortress. So 5/8 artillery 3 plus 2 fortress tanks. The tanks are the thing that really take this over the edge. It gets value every turn, the stat line is strong, and it's got its own defenders, the fortress tanks. So it's very hard for your opponent to remove this unit. And once you get it down, it's just really powerful. It's also amazing in late game if you're top decking. You and your opponent both have empty hands. This is a fantastic game-winning top deck. But yeah, this is another one of your win conditions, along with We Shall Never Surrender. And I mean, the dream scenario, of course, you could play this and then the next turn play We Shall Not Surrender and just get both. But yeah, I would say this is the other win condition. If you get this on the board and you're even or a little bit ahead already, this is likely going to take you into a winning position. So those are some of the key cards. Again, the full deck list is in the video description, and I also posted it in the Storm Warfare Discord deck building channel. With that said, we're going to cut to some featured matches from yesterday when I was testing this deck. So let's go to that. He's running infantry. I'm not sure what country that is. So give me 1 and 3 is pretty good. I'm going first. Good, 2 1-drops. Good start. Infantry would be another option for this deck, as opposed to running bombardment. Yeah. Oh, it's Germany. Okay, so he's running aggro Germany, I guess, but with the infantry. The infantry is just a little bit unexpected. So I can kill this for free if I just bombard it. But the playing the Infantry Brigade is a better tempo play. It might actually be worth it just to toss out the Infantry Brigade, because then next turn I can play Decoy Operation. If I want to do it the Ultra Chad way, I trade this in now. This becomes a 2/6. Yeah, let's do that line. This line has worked pretty well for the aggro version of the list. Might be even better for this control version. There's one thing I've learned from watching the top players in Parallel, because there's a lot of like Hearthstone pros that are sponsored by Parallel. The way they approach the meta is like they play a deck for 3 or 4 games, and as soon as it doesn't seem like it's amazing, they just instantly move on. Like, they do not play 10 games to test the deck. They play 2. As soon as they feel like it's not crushing, they just stop trying to figure it out. I'm probably oversimplifying, but like that's something I really noticed. I could Decoy Operation, but I can also just play out my cards. If they're playing... I don't know what the hell they're doing. They played Romanian Oil. It's either Decoy Operation or the 2 and the 1. I think for this deck, I'm supposed to play Decoy because I'm playing the slower version. Okay, let's do this. I need the card draw. I need to look for intel. No intel in my hand, which is a bit annoying. But yeah, way ahead on the board. Yeah, let's try that. I think every card game should be playable in the browser. Hot take. Every card game, every single digital card game, and no offense to Parallel, this isn't aimed at them in particular, but it's just, it is what it is. I think every card game should be playable in the browser. I think one of the main things about card games that makes them like a good style of game, like one of the big benefits is that it should be easy to run the game, even on a weak computer. Okay, so we got intel. We'll play the intel. This has artillery 1, so I just got to kill it. Yes, sir. Go ahead and bop that. I could play the Thunder guy. It's like a little bit of tempo, but we're also pretty exposed to AoE. I'm not even gonna play it yet. Completely different play style, running this deck in a more controlling fashion. You agree? It's just like, it's one of the things that's kind of like really frustrating about Parallel in particular is like, my computer runs Elden Ring on stream with no problem, but Parallel can barely run. It's like, bro, this is a fucking card game, you know? So they're a bit extreme in terms of like the computer load. And I like the game in a lot of other ways. That's just like one of the downsides of that one. Champions is all browser, and to me it's really pretty nice. Storm Warfare is both options. Is Gods Unchained playable in the browser? I don't know. I think every card game should at least have an option. It just seems like, why not? Like, it's a card game. Alright, they are tanking super hard. Whenever the enemy commander draws a card, deal 1 damage to a random enemy. And it has Storm, which means it can attack twice per turn. We gotta kill that. Another Fortress. Hermes goes wide. We'll save this till I draw the 1/1 buff spell. So the big thing here is to kill this. But I can also not even... I can just sacrifice the 2/2. Here's what we can... actually... Oh, shit. I found the line. Yeah, I found the line. Here, play this. Play this. Do 1 damage to that. Trade in these 1/1s. I can even kill the this 1/1. Although maybe I'm being too fucking a little too defensive if I clear that 1/1. I'll just go face with both of these. And the intel ramps my 2-drop to a 1-drop. Play that as fast as I can. The turn's over. He does have plenty of cards in his hand. I am afraid of a board clear. I'm not sure exactly what Germany has available. Still learning this game. Not sure what board clear is going to be available. Deal 1 damage to all enemy tanks. That's not so bad. It's a 5/5, which is pretty nice, but okay. This is awesome. Fortress Artillery 2. I can just trade in the 3/2 and the 2/2 into the 5/5. Or I can ignore it. Play the 6/6. Go face for 8. And just start shutting it down. It's honestly probably the better line. I think we switch to aggression now. We'll see if this backfires, but it does seem like this is the time. I could have killed the 1/1 though, so now they can trade into the 6/6. Maybe artillery will hit the 1/1. Nah, it hits the 5/5. Okay, I probably should have killed that 1/1. It's like the one thing I messed up. I definitely should have killed the 1/1. It's still a reasonably good spot though, I think. Destroy an enemy unit. Fair enough. Okay. Well, the 2/2 still blocks the 5/3, stopping them from getting at my good stuff. Is that Thunder? No, it can't be. What is that? Oh, it's their GP. Okay. Going face? Weird. I guess we'll just go in. I kind of want to save this in case they have an AoE spell. Just save it Like, I already have what I need on the board to just win. I think I'm just not going to play the HMS Hermes. Maybe I'm being too cautious. It is possible, but... Threatening, lethal, and I don't need to expose myself to getting board cleared in a big way where like I lose too much value. Just based on a single game, this version of the list definitely feels like it's slapping a lot harder, so maybe this is it. Maybe this is the one here. Let's keep track of the wins and losses on this deck. If we can just get something that just can pop a few wins and feel really strong. Don't mind that. If I click out of the window and then click back in, it does that. Nothing actually happened. Fortress, final stand, 5-drop. That's pretty nasty. Good thing I can retreat it, so we still have lethal. This guy is winning me the game right now. Yeah, we retreat their defense, and we just have lethal. This dude is so clutch. This is also great, but yeah, GG. Good game. Hey, they saluted back. I respect it. Okay, that was crazy. I already put the win in before we even won. That was bad. But yeah, 1-0 with this deck.